People often ask me what my most anticipated game of 2025 is, and I think that my answer is probably the same as a lot of you out there. It is, of course, the long-awaited Hollow Knight Silksong from Team Cherry, the follow-up to the incredible Metroidvania Hollow Knight, which I think is widely considered to be the best Metroidvania ever, even outstripping Super Metroid and Castlevania. Although feel free to set me straight in the comments if you think differently, of course. And Silksong has been subject to a lot of delays, a lot of speculation, and a bit of an information gap in what is going on with the game. So I thought I would just have a look at where we are at in terms of the news that we've received, anything we've heard from Team Cherry and the people surrounding Team Cherry, and just take a little look at where we're at, why it might be taking so long, and when we can expect the game. Of course, a lot of that isn't available to the public, so it is just speculation in some ways, but I think a good place to start is to look at the development of Hollow Knight itself to see if there's anything there, if there are any clues that we can look at that might inform us about what's going on with Silksong. And as you probably know, the original Hollow Knight was kickstarted back in 2014 to the tune of 35,000 Australian dollars, that's 21,000 USD, and it was released 3 years later in 2017. So that's a 3-year gap between announcement and launch, which seems pretty normal for an indie games development cycle, even with a small team, and Team Cherry is a small team. It was just 3 for the original game, it is 4 for this game, so it's just 4 people making this giant game. But Silksong is taking a lot longer than Hollow Knight. It recently hit the 6-year anniversary of its announcement, and it has slipped from a mooted 2023 release date to being indefinitely delayed, and it has now literally doubled the amount of development time that the first game took between announcement and release. And delays in game development are nothing new, we're all used to them, but this one is notably unusually long at this point, and Team Cherry has been radio silent pretty much since 2019 when the game was announced, except for a couple of oblique tweets and Discord messages and little Discord chats and things like that from people associated with the team, if not the team themselves. And this has left fans simmering with frustration. I think it is the not knowing that is really getting to people. People are starving for any news at all about the game. And from a PR perspective, this is a pretty strange move from Team Cherry in my mind, and I think in a lot of your minds too. They communicated very well during the development of Hollow Knight, and they had to keep the Kickstarter community in the loop about what was going on with the game. So they did monthly development blogs, they revealed sketches and artwork for new characters, they showed off new areas, they showed off new pieces of music, and they really shared what was happening with the game on a pretty regular cadence. You can look at it yourself. If you go to teamcherry.com/blog and then scroll down and look at the older posts, you can cycle through everything that Team Cherry released during the Hollow Knight development cycle, and it's quite a lot of stuff. They really were sharing development updates on quite a regular cadence, and I think that this communication went a long way in keeping fans of the game, people that were anticipating the game, and Kickstarter patrons feeling happy. But they've been completely tight-lipped since 2019 on Silksong. Around 2019, when the game was first announced, they did actually post a lengthy video to the Team Cherry YouTube channel about the game for fans, and there was quite a lot of information in there about the gameplay, about the setup of the world, about all of the different ideas they had about the game back then at the start of it all, and I will go into some of that later in the video. But since then, the only nuggets of information that we've really had have come from a couple of people around Team Cherry, not Team Cherry themselves. One of them is Matthew Griffin, the poor guy tasked with marketing the game, who's clearly had very little to work with, and he's been bearing the brunt of fan frustration online, and every word that he says about the game turns into news stories that echo around the world. For example, when a desperate fan literally begged to know if the game was even still in development this January, he replied, yes, the game is still in development and will release. And I mean, that's a pretty tiny nugget of news. I don't think that any of us out here are really thinking that Silksong has ceased development. We all know it's taking a long time, but it's gotten to the point where people are literally asking that question, and it's even gotten to the point where the global news media will pick up on such a tiny tweet, and, you know, there were many news stories about that tiny crumb of information, which really just shows that people are ravenous for news, to the point where they are getting actually desperate and wondering if the game is stuck in development hell or even coming out at all. And I mean, the question of development hell is actually, I think, a reasonable one to ask. Like, has the game undergone some kind of major redesign that has meant that the development time has had to be extended as the game is reworked in its entirety? You know, is it going through a major reboot? Has it suffered scope creep to the point where it's potentially unfinishable? These are reasonable questions to ask, but they have also been refuted by someone close to Team Cherry, a playtester called Greg, who has sometimes answered questions on the Team Cherry Discord, said in 2024, he said, "Hi guys, I literally know they are not in development hell." He added, "Every software development cycle is like this. Internal dates are set and missed all of the time. It's literally a normal part of software development." He went on to say that people don't normally hear about such delays because they aren't announced to the public, and again, this is completely normal for every development cycle. So the only lines that we've really had from the developers are that work is ongoing, that they are still working on the game. And in the original development of Hollow Knight, the team did add a lot of stuff. They even intended for Silksong itself to be DLC, but that idea just grew and grew and grew to the point where it became a separate standalone game. So it seems like Team Cherry's creative process involves the doing. You know, it's not like they sketch out a plan and then they just execute it. It's more that they work in a living, flowing sort of way. They get ideas as they are working. They add to what they're doing. They build on what they are doing. And that's why the Hollow Nest and Hollow Knight 1 is quite so amazing. It's just dizzyingly big. The scope and scale of the play area is vast. And so I really think that really what they're just doing is just making the game. They're just making a really big game that keeps on growing. But I will say that why they wouldn't more clearly communicate that to us is, you know, it's a real mystery to everyone, I think. But when I was looking into all of this and I was just Googling what nuggets of news have come out about Silksong, I did pick up on a few details about the game that I didn't know before. Some of this is old news, but it's been so long now that I think that we've kind of forgotten what they are making exactly. Maybe there are a few hints in here about why the game is taking so long and what it will look like when it finally lands. So this game moves away from the Hollow Nest, where we went downwards and downwards to the bottom of the nest, and instead we're going to be climbing in this game. It's set in the kingdom of Farloom, a world ruled by Silk and Song, if Team Cherry have said, and the gameplay builds on these two concepts of Silk and Song. We can see, of course, that Hornet uses Spider Silk in both combat and traversal. We're not quite sure what role Song will take in it, outside of just a snatch of one of your NPC friends singing in the original announcement trailer. Of course, we do see games where playing music can charm creatures, open doors, and so forth, so maybe we're going to be learning melodies and using it in gameplay, or maybe it's some kind of variation on that idea. And speaking of music, it has also been confirmed that Christopher Larkin is doing the soundtrack, which is wonderful news, as the Hollow Knight soundtrack was just a masterpiece. There are 2 tracks out now on Bandcamp. They are Lace and Bone Bottom, and both of those will be used in the background of this video in some places. But Team Cherry have also shared some details of this world. They have said that Farloom will include coral forests, mossy grottos, gilded cities, misted moors, and we will be ascending through all of this to the shining citadel at the top of the world. And in the 2019 video, they jokingly said that they already had too many ideas 6 years ago, and they wondered if some of their current ideas might slip into being DLC. I think that we've had that question answered. The answer is no. They really have just kept adding and adding. And that's what these delays are. It's just them adding all of their ideas into the game. It's going to be a bigger world than they initially imagined. And with a 3-person team, that just takes time, you know, to make the art, to make the animation, to make the design, to playtest and tune the gameplay. With such a small team, it just takes a long time. They did also share some remarks on the combat in that video. They said that Hornet is going to have more flowing, fluid, momentum-based combat, which was an interesting comment. She is, of course, going to have her own suite of moves, some of which we've seen when she was an adversary in the original Hollow Knight, some of which are new. Team Cherry have said that she's also very fast, a different pace all round in their own words, so we can expect quicker, more vertical and more acrobatic gameplay, I would say. They also shared that there is a focus on crafting in the new game. The description said that we'll be crafting powerful tools, traps and mechanisms. Team Cherry have shared that in place of the charms of the original game, Hornet will craft complex tools and items, the schematics of which will come from characters you meet in your journey, and that they will be used for both combat and traversal. So that's interesting. We're going to be crafting, we're going to be resource collecting, we're going to be making things in this game. There's also a different approach to side quests in this game. Team Cherry have said that Hornet will have a more formalized quest log. They added that characters in this world will have unfulfilled wishes, and Hornet's side quests will be about fulfilling those wishes. They gave examples of gathering ingredients for cooking, recovering and returning lost things. And this all sounds very familiar, but they also said that the quests will have intentional variety and twists. and that wish fulfillment will feed into later gameplay. That's quite interesting too. I wonder if we have to gain the affinity of different characters in this world and if they will come together in some way towards the end of the game. They also mention that quests will revisit characters and locations from the original, which I am greatly looking forward to. I have a very fond attachment to some of those Hollow Knight characters. They have also mentioned that there's going to be more enemy variety in this game. Hollow Knight had 140 enemies. Silksong will have, at the last count, 165. There are going to be beasts and hunters, assassins and kings, monsters and knights, and in that 2019 video, Team Cherry seemed very excited about making the enemies distinct from one another, less about recolors and reworks, and more about genuine variety and real gameplay implications. We do of course get a glimpse at some bosses and enemies and NPC friend types in that initial trailer, which I'm sure you're looking at right now. And finally, they showed there's going to be a Silksong mode, that is a new game plus with increased difficulty and some kind of additional gameplay element, whether that might be a randomizer to alter gameplay and repeat playthroughs or something like that, to make it fresh and to make it fun to play through the game again. So there really is a lot of information out there, and all I can say about it is, I feel the frustration myself. We've been waiting for this game for a long time, and I too wish that Team Cherry would be a little more communicative, show a little bit of work, give people little glimpses of the game, just to give fans something to go on and to, quiet down that frustrated online discourse that has gotten a little toxic out there. So that's it for this video, but please do let me know in the comments, do you think that 2025 is going to be the year of Silksong? Have you got belief? Do you think that it's coming this year? Let me know in the comments. I will also mention at the end of the video, this is a Patreon supported channel, so if you've enjoyed this video about Silksong, there are lots more videos on the channel about new indie games, forthcoming indie games. There is also a weekly podcast that you can find at gaminginthewild.com, and the Patreon is at patreon.com/gaminginthewild. This channel and the podcast are Patreon supported. I myself was a games industry layoff last year. I've been making content as a way of moving forward from that. So if you enjoy what I do and you would like to see me making more of it, then I would love nothing more. It would be a really fun part-time job to be a content creator, making videos and podcasts for all of you. And that can happen if enough people sign up at patreon.com/gaminginthewild. Patrons also get access to the patron-only Discord with loads of activities, playthroughs, game recommendations. You get 15 bonus podcasts, including travelogues recorded out on the road. You get loads of behind-the-scenes content creation shop talk. So if you're up for any of that stuff, it's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. And with that, I'll end the video, so take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you on the next one.